I hope you guys like my new background. I thought that if I start filming in my room, I'll be less nervous and give you guys better content. So yeah, with that, let's go straight into the video. Hey guys, welcome to Telling the Told and Untold. My name is Tshego. So today we're going to be covering the kidnapping and murder of Leigh Mathews. Leigh Mathews was a 21-year-old accounting student at Bond University. Coincidentally, the university closed down at the end of 2004, the same year that this case took place. So on the 8th of July 2004, Leigh Mathews was celebrating her 21st birthday with close friends and family. She was really excited and planned to have a bigger celebration that Saturday at the Wits Club. That night, after celebrating her birthday, she went home with her father Rob, her mother Sharon, and her sister Kirsten to their home in Fourways. And once they got there, her mom and father gifted her with a Transnite ring. Friday morning, the 9th of July, Leigh got up and ready for school. She put the ring that her parents had gifted her in her jean pocket and got in her car and went to campus. Once she arrived on campus, she realized that she still had her mom's card. So she called her mom and they arranged for her mom to come to campus at 10 a.m. and meet up so she could give her mom her card back. Once her mom arrived on campus, she tried calling Leigh and Leigh wasn't answering. So she just assumed that she was caught up in class. So she decided to get a parking and just continuously kept trying to call Leigh. And afterwards, someone finally picked up, but it was a man and he claimed to have kidnapped Leigh. Her mom thought it was a joke, just one of her friends, just playing a trick on her. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. After that, Sharon got on the phone with her husband Rob and told him about this man claiming to have kidnapped Leigh. He dropped the phone and called Leigh's phone and the same man answered. The man said that he had kidnapped Leigh and said that he wanted $300,000 for her safe return. After this, Rob left the office and went to 2 Standard Bank branches and got $300,000 in cash. After having withdrawn this money, Rob called a private investigator and they planned to meet up at a nearby petrol station. Once they got to the petrol station, Rob told the private investigator about what the kidnapper had asked for and said that he didn't want the police involved. The PI, however, insisted that Rob call the police, and after a while, Rob finally agreed. The PI called a nearby police station and within 30 minutes, a police officer met them at the petrol station. Rob then went on to explain to the police officer about the call that he had made and the money he had withdrawn. The police officer, however, suggested that instead of giving him $300,000 in cash, he just call the kidnapper back and tell him that he was only able to get $50,000 in cash on such short notice. At the same time that this was happening, Leigh got the opportunity to call her mom and pleaded with her mom not to involve the police and listen to the kidnapper. Rob called the kidnapper and told him that he was only able to gather $50,000 in cash, and the kidnapper said that was okay and set up a meeting time. The meeting time was 8 o'clock that very evening on the R558 off-ramp. As 8 o'clock was approaching, Rob got into the car with an envelope that had the $50,000 and a police officer in the back seat. However, as he was driving, he got so nervous that he stopped the car and told the police officer to get out, to which the police officer did. He continued driving and missed the meeting point. Immediately after this, the kidnapper called him and started swearing at him and told him to turn the car around and get to the meeting point. Rob later said that it was the first time the kidnapper ever sounded so angry over the phone, and it's as though he was concealing his actual voice because he had an Indian accent for the first time ever. Rob got to the meeting point, stopped his car, and flashed the lights 3 times, which is what the kidnapper told him to do once he got to the meeting point. As he sat in the car, someone creeped up and knocked on the window. Rob then opened the window and threw the envelope out the window, and the kidnapper then told him to drive. As Rob was driving, he was just waiting for the call with the location of Leigh, and it seemed as though that was never coming. After 50 minutes, he finally decided to call Leigh's phone, and it was off. He called a further 6 times, and it was still off. And at 11:20, he tried to call her phone for the last time, and it was still off. After this, him and his wife just knew that they were in trouble. After the kidnappers had failed to return Leigh to her family, they decided to create a task force that had 15 people. Amongst these 15 people, it included the PI and 2 hostage negotiators. That Saturday evening, a night that was supposed to be spent celebrating Leigh's 21st birthday, a press conference was held. Rob and Sharon pleaded with the kidnappers to return Leigh safely. 40 hours later, they held another press conference and continued to plead with the kidnappers for Leigh's safe return. 150 more members were added to the task force, and they had 3 landlines in their location that were constantly ringing with people giving tips that they had seen Leigh and just giving information that they thought would be helpful. Rob and Sharon later said that the task force became one family that had one goal: to return Leigh home safely. The first thing the task force decided to do was to ping Leigh's cell phone for her last location, and it bounced off of 3 towers in the Walkerville area. After this, they decided to search the area with helicopters and men on foot. However, they found nothing. On the 21st of July, 12 days after Leigh's kidnapping, a man who was harvesting grass in the Walkerville area found the body of 21-year-old Leigh Mathews. Leigh had been shot 4 times, and her body was in the early stages of decomposition. They also found 4 bullet casings that were placed carefully by her legs. What had first started out as a recovery mission for Leigh had now turned into a murder investigation. The task force was then disbanded, and Pete Blayfield was put on the case. The first thing Blayfield decided to do was start the investigation off from the very beginning, despite having all the information that the task force had already gathered. So the first thing he decided to do was go back to the place that Leigh had been kidnapped, which was Bond University. Once he got to Bond University, they checked the security guards and everyone that had come in and out. It is important to note that the university did have security, and everybody that came on and off campus had been accounted for. And with that, Blayfield thought that the only logical explanation was that the kidnapper was a student. So Blayfield decided to get the student records for Bond University and ran them across the information that he had already gathered. And that was only that Rob had heard the kidnapper shouting in an Indian accent. So he thought, okay, Indian, let me run it across the student records. And he came up with one name, which was Donovan Wheatley. Donovan Whitley lived in Randburg with his parents and was in his first year at Bond University. Before this, he worked at a company in the finance department. However, he had been fired for fraud. But the company couldn't file charges because they didn't have enough evidence against him. The next thing Blayfield did was search hotels that were nearby the drop-off location for the money. And he decided to do this because he thought that the kidnapper might need a place to lay low in case something went wrong or the location had police officers all around it. So he went to nearby hotels and got the records of everybody that had booked at the hotel. And at the nearest hotel, he found Donovan Wheatley's name. Donovan Wheatley used his own name, ID number, and license plate to book a room. He also paid by card. He booked a room on the 16th of July for 2 days and later booked it for 2 more days. After this, Blayfield decided to look into Donovan's bank records and saw that in the month of July, he had made 3 large deposits. On the 15th of July, he deposited $17,000, and on the 27th of July, he made 2 deposits, one for $4,000 and one for $14,000. It was also discovered that Donovan owned a motorcycle. However, it had been damaged in an accident, and the repairs for it cost $38,000. On the 28th of July, Donovan called the dealership and said, "A deal has gone wrong and I can't afford to pay that amount." Because Donovan was a regular customer, they decided to reduce the amount from 38,000 to 16,000, which personally I don't know what kind of regular customer you have to be for them to reduce the amount by 22,000. That's a lot. It was also discovered that after Leigh's kidnapping and murder, Donovan went on a spending spree. He bought designer shoes, went to expensive restaurants, and also booked a holiday to Durban with his girlfriend and another couple. Whilst they were there, he booked a yacht for the night and proposed to his girlfriend. It was later discovered that the ransom money was used to buy her engagement ring. A few days after Leigh's kidnapping, her car was found in a nearby park. In the car, they found lotto tickets and brown sellotape, which all had fingerprints on them. They ran these fingerprints against those of Donovan's, and they were a match. Because Blayfield believed that Donovan had accomplices, they decided to surveillance him while they did more investigating. Blayfield decided to pull Donovan's phone records, and it showed that his movements the day of Leigh's kidnapping matched with Leigh's cell phone records as well. They also decided to look at the people that he had called the day of Leigh's kidnapping, and he had called several people. One of the people that Donovan had called was his childhood friend. His name wasn't released, so I'll just call him John. And his cell phone records show that he was at the same location and at the same time as the drop-off for the ransom money. Donovan also owned a small business in which him and a business partner would rent pool tables to clubs, people that had events, just things like that. So on the day of Leigh's kidnapping, he called his business partner, his sister's boyfriend, and a couple of hours later called his fiancée and gave her an address to go to. Leigh's body had freezer burns on both her hands and her feet, which indicates that she was kept in a cooling room. With this, investigators believe that Leigh was killed only a couple of hours after her kidnapping and before the drop-off of the ransom money, and that she was kept in a cooling room for about 12 days after that until her body was dumped in the Walkerville area. It was also discovered that one of Donovan's friends owned a mortuary, and with this, police officers went to go investigate it to look for any evidence of Leigh, and unfortunately came out empty-handed. On the 4th of October 2004, Donovan Wheatley was arrested outside of his house. The first thing he said was, "What took you so long? I've been expecting you." Donovan confessed almost immediately, and his story goes like this. He says on the 9th of July 2004, he saw Leigh and asked her for a lift, to which she agreed. As she was driving, he pulled a gun on her and told her to park her car in a nearby park. Once they got to the park, he tied her up and put her in the boot of the car, and then went back to Bond University to fetch his car. After that, he went back to fetch Leigh and put her in the car and to an undisclosed location. He says the reason why he decided to kill Leigh was because it was receiving too much media attention and he got scared. Once he decided that he was going to kill Leigh, he told her to take off her clothes because he didn't want any evidence on them, and gave her a blanket. He says after this, he drove to the Walkerville area, and once they got there, they just sat and spoke. Afterwards, Leigh said that she needed the bathroom and she got out the car. And after that, Donovan followed her and shot her. He then showed investigators the area where he burned her car keys, clothes, and cell phone. Donovan then remembered the story that she had told him about the Transnite ring that her parents had gifted her with, and returned back to the area to get it from her jean pocket. The ring was later discovered in a CD case hidden in his bedroom. Evidence showed that Donovan was lying about when and where he killed Leigh. He says that he killed her in the Walkerville area when she was going out to use the bathroom. However, that isn't true, because when they discovered Leigh's body, the shell casings had been carefully placed and there was no signs of a struggle or blood splatter, which showed that she had not been killed there. Leigh had been shot 4 times, and evidence shows that the first bullet was the one to have killed her. and it shows that she was shot in the back of the head, which also doesn't go hand in hand with Donovan's story that he had shot her when she went out of the car to go use the bathroom. After this, police officers took Donovan to his house and he gave them the gun that he had used to kill Leigh. They also found in a computer disk 2 apology letters, one to his parents and one to his fiancée. Before they took him out of the house, he pleaded that they just give him a second to say bye to his parents, and they agreed. Once he saw his parents, he fell to his knees and confessed. His mom asked who he had killed, and Donovan said that he had killed Leigh Mathews. Donovan's mom later says that when she heard this, she just cried because she couldn't believe it. She had seen Leigh's case all over TV and she'd constantly prayed for her safe return, not knowing that her son was behind it all along. Investigators believe that Donovan didn't work alone. However, no accomplices have ever been identified or arrested. If you remember earlier in the video, he called his girlfriend the same day that Leigh had been kidnapped and gave her an address that she should go to. Her body had freezer bites on her hands and feet, and his friend owns a mortuary. His childhood friend John's phone records show that he was at the same location at the same time as the ransom drop-off. Investigators also believe that this was not Donovan's first kidnapping. In January 2004, he made a large deposit of 94,000 rand, and he claims that this is from his business. However, a business that only rents out 2 pool tables, being able to make 92,000 in just a month doesn't add up. Donovan pleaded guilty, and in 2005 he was sentenced to 40 years in prison. He will be 65 years old when he comes out. In 2010, Donovan appealed for a lesser sentence. However, his appeal was denied. Rob and Sharon created the Leigh Mathews Trust, which funds 2 trauma centers, one in Soweto and one in Randburg, for victims of crime. And that is it for this week's case. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and leave any comments you have about the case down below. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye!